Hey Vogue.
Hi Vogue.
Hey, what's up, Vogue?
Hello and welcome to the Get Vogued podcast, a sparkly addition to getvogue.com. I'm Kelsey Savin, your Australian and now London-based host, and I will be discussing all things fashion, marketing, and sustainability. I hope you're ready to get vogued. Welcome back to episode 5 of Conversations with Kelsey, a Get Vogue podcast. We have got a very interesting topic for you today, fashion and activism. And I have a wonderful guest with me, Isabella Veronica. She has accomplished many things, but to quickly list off, she did her grad school at George Washington in international affairs, majoring in international laws and organization. She graduated at the young age of 21, which is very impressive. She has worked with the UN for many years, the United Nations, and she's currently the regional leader for Southeast Asia in the Girl Up Women's Support Initiative. She's also the founder of VERONIQUE Labels, a sustainable and responsible label based in Jakarta, Indonesia. She is also very passionate about international human rights, digital activism, and gender-related issues. So welcome, Isabella.
Hi Kelsey. Thank you again for the opportunity and also for inviting me to your amazing platform and to your podcast. I think we're going to have a great conversation regarding an intersection of an issue that I think is very up and coming, and also it's going to be an interesting thing to hear from your perspective and from everyone's as well. So thanks again for having me. Thank you for the kind introduction as well. And I think, as you have mentioned in the very beginning, today we're going to talk about activism and the intersection of fashion in so many different ways and levels, as well as we've probably heard from a lot of the upticks and uprise of many issues going on in the world in the last 1 year, especially in the pandemic. We've seen, the rise of many racial movements and issues, from the Black Lives Movement last summer to anti-Asian hate movements actually this summer, to the ongoing issue of gender inequality and gender-based violence that we're having. So I think today we're going to also intersect that into a very interesting, unique passion that we both have, which is fashion. So yeah, we're very excited to get deeper into it.
Fabulous. Yes, we are. And we're actually going to focus on three key areas. One being gender definition, the other being diversity and inclusion, and that ropes in lots of the racism, Black Lives Matter, anti-Asian hate kind of issues, and then of course sustainability. And I wanted to start with a quote by one of my favorite streetwear photographers, the now late Bill Cunningham. And he said that fashion is the armor to survive the reality of everyday life. And I just think this is so applicable to, everyone, whether you're consciously or unconsciously dressing with purpose, whether it be, loungewear for lockdown or a power suit back in the office, or, heels or flats. You kind of present your identity to the world before, words even come out of your mouth. And this has really been translated into mainstream fashion. Brands like Vivienne Westwood has really made political statements since the label's inception in the 70s. Recently incorporating issues like WikiLeaks and, of course, environmental issues. We've always had, things like anti-fur, and other like PETA-driven issues. When Maria Grazia Chiuri from Dior became the first appointed, creative director of Dior, she launched this "We Should All Be Feminists" t-shirts, which has, become kind of a uniform for, the progressive, fashion influencer. And now, owning a Telfar bag, comes with a unisex and Black empowerment code. So there's lots of ways that, bold and subtle expressions of your beliefs through fashion we have seen recently and historically. So I can't wait to dive in.
That's amazing. I love how you started with that really on point quote. And I think it's a great headway to our first topic and our first point of what we're talking today. And that's starting off with gender, I think, gender equality in fashion. I think as a gender advocate myself and coming from the field of gender, I've been working here for almost 2 years. I always say that everyone experiences gender, and also everyone experiences gender discrimination at one point. It's a growing sort of like field where it's actually intersectional towards so many different issues. And we've seen people talk about gender through the lens of, climate, through the lens of LGBTQI plus community. And now we're talking of how it can intersect towards fashion. I always start that the question about when we talk about gender equality in fashion is, in gender, we have this spectrum, a gender spectrum, and it's starting off with a gender identity. And gender identity is how you identify yourself, whether it be a female or a woman or a girl or a male or a man or boy or other gender. And then we have the gender expression. Now, it's how you express yourself based on the gender identity that you basically correlate with, whether it be feminine, it's masculine, or androgynous, or a mix of both, or completely either or. So we have those two main sort of like keyword when we're talking about the intersection to fashion. And then other than that, we have something called what we're physically attracted to and emotionally attracted to, and it's also a part of the gender spectrum. Now, I always ask that when we have gender as a spectrum, we also have the spectrum of comfort. And where you lie in the gender spectrum may influence your spectrum of comfort in the choice of clothing that you wear. Gender, to me, is inherently personal. It's a personal expression of what it means to be yourself, to how you want other people to also see you. And that's exactly how fashion works in a nutshell. It's how you see yourself. As a stylist, you can probably definitely relate to that. And how sometimes, like as a client, maybe you have a client who says, oh, I want to look this certain way. I want to portray this certain feature or something like that. And to discuss around the issue of gender and sexuality, I think we need to start educating society and people to understand this gender spectrum, because you cannot accept something without understanding it first. And I think that is why we have heard a lot of the term called gender-defying fashion, genderless clothing or androgynous clothing, breaking down the stigma and basically trying to create this resistance from what I mentioned earlier, masculinity versus femininity. And I think that it was basically the key point when I wrote an op-ed regarding fashion and gender fluidity and using Harry Styles and BTS. And who doesn't know Harry Styles? And again, right now BTS. Because I realized that not a lot of people talk about that intersection. And if we start seeing the fluid approach, we will start to see the barriers to start open, the barriers of conversing like this, of what we're doing about, gender discrimination is very much still evident in the way what you wear and how you portray yourself. Because at the end of the day, gender influences everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the examples that you gave about Harry Styles and BTS, because, they're such prominent pop culture figures, especially in, I'm based in the UK at the moment, and Harry Styles has just kind of over the past few years, in partnership with Gucci, just kind of broken down the mainstream, aesthetics in a kind of authentic way. And it's not, it doesn't really come across as too much of a, for the press kind of thing. It's very much just exploring and expressing and just having fun with fashion, which I just think is what, clothing is all about, and just, expressing identity. And I think it's really great to look at how, the fashion industry can undefine and dismantle the stereotypes and ideals of what it means to be feminine and masculine, but also, you know, finding comfort in people who want to be on the ultra feminine side and want to be on the ultra masculine side, whatever that may mean to them. As you said, it's ultra personal. So I've kind of seen in pop culture that you know, models like Bella Hadid, she's really brought back you know, the grungy aesthetic, like low-rise baggy jeans and tomboy look. And I think that's really awesome to see, just her expressing, you know, and playing with fashion. And even so, it's like representation of, you know, mixed gender dressing or androgynous fashion. Like there was that really famous Brad Pitt photo shoot for the Rolling Stone magazine. I think it was in 1999. You know, he was in multiple sequin dresses and he was in this like Arctic wasteland, and you know, it was just such a fun and bold and you know, just really playful way to use fashion. But you know, I think that one way we could look at, I guess, undefining or breaking down those barriers is, you know, starting young, you know, with gender reveals. I think that's such a, in itself is the, you know, the blue balloons or the pink balloons.
Yeah.
And, you know, that straight away is teaching kids about feminine, masculine colors. You know, with toys, you either get a Barbie or a truck, and you know, feminine or masculine names. And I think that that's it's already changing, but it's such an interesting way to look at, you know, these symbols or icons of you know, feminine or masculinity, and how that's kind of been portrayed in fashion, and how that is just morphed into this, you know, statement that now, if you're breaking the barriers, you know, you're either making a statement or I think that it's very much given place for people to, yeah, be expressive, and also for it to be less of a point and more just identity expressing.
Yeah, I love exactly what you just mentioned, especially with the gender reveals. And it's very important to also look back in history of how basically we got to a point where men are supposed to wear, you know, like blue is the color for men and pink is the color for women. Initially, it was actually starting the World War, and where women are mostly nurses, and that's why we've seen like the traditional like nursing sort of like outfit or uniform is pink. It's sort of like a reddish pink dresses, and it's to identify that, oh, these are the women who are the nurses. And it goes on and on towards the line of history. And we see like even couture brands like Chanel making, you know, pink, the very famous Jackie Kennedy pink suit and boxed hat, and it becomes a symbol of femininity. And that's exactly why history should be rewritten, and we should break away from the past and also start to understand that it's okay for men to, you know, wear pink, or women to wear whatever color they want to be, and it doesn't have to always correlate with gender and with being feminine or masculine. And I think that's exactly true, and something I want to also, you know, have this conversation with you, that these are clothes being gendered. And we have, you know, we had it from the past, we had it from traditional forms of highlighting the male and female body, like accentuating the waist. And you know, in the 50s, you say people dress with sort of like bold suits to show their strengths. And it's also evident historically why actually suits have a lot of pocket, like men's suits have a lot of pockets, because men are supposed to be ready to go to war. And that exactly is the stereotype, that men are the fighters and women are told to wear corsets. And that's why the idea of Victorian corsets started way back in the ancient 1800s, because women are told to sit tight and not do a lot of things, like look pretty and not go and ride horses, or I don't know. And that's exactly how history has tried to write these stereotypical feminine and masculine views through clothes. And today, we're actually looking at people breaking boundaries from it, from men wearing corsets because it just looks good, or wearing spandex because it's nice, to, you know, women wearing basically now the androgynous look and suits and shoulders, shoots with strong shoulders. And that's exactly how we can also go beyond, transcending the idea that clothes are gendered, and to learn that it is a part of our individual identity, and it shouldn't be used as a tool for discrimination. Like, gender is a part of our individual identity, fashion is a part of our individual identity, and it shouldn't be used as a tool for discrimination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so telling as a, mirror of the changing roles of men and women in a household, in the workplace, in the role for activism, in the role of having a voice and that sort of thing. And I know that you worked with your Girl Up initiative, I think it was the Girl Up theory campaign that you did last year, the Future of Work, which brought to light the role of women in the workplace and the issues around it, such as gender-based violence, sexual harassment in the workplace. Did you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yes. For those of you who don't know what Theory is, Theory, I think, is a brand that started in the United States. It's a new American brand, and they have been doing a lot of campaigns regarding making sure that women are represented in all different sectors and areas. So last year in October, right before International Day of the Girl, actually, Theory invited Girl Up, and especially leaders from Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, and also Northern America and Europe to take part in the Women in the Workforce Theory, Women in the Workforce Future of the Work campaign. So what the Future of the Work campaign basically highlighted is, what's the future of work is asking the question of what is the future of work for our next generation of girls, especially to women. Theory is one of my favorite brand that actually intersects all, like having a genderless brands, and also clothing, from the colors, from the cutting, from the silhouette, and from the styles. And I think the future of work, to me, what I shared for Theory in that campaign was that it is one that is free from racial, gender, age, and religious discrimination and harassment, and one that continuously work towards equality in the pursuit of equity for all its women workers, and to provide a dignified and sensitive, decent working environment and treatment to everyone. And I think we can also talk about that in our sustainability point. But that is sort of like a great brand with a very conscious, a very gender conscious brand, and also conscious enough to bring in women who are, working professionals. Me and you were working professionals, and showcasing that, whatever we wear, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be a tool for discrimination. And we still get discrimination, sadly, in our workplace. And that's something that Theory highlighted in the campaign. And I'm very, very great to share that and also take part in that.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's such a amazing initiative, and something that I can't wait to learn more about. We'll definitely link that in the show notes. But I think, one thing I'd love to add, and I guess for people to take away from this is, as a stylist, some people come up to me sometimes and say, what should I be wearing? How do I look a certain way? How do I use clothes to make me feel X, Y, and Z? And, of course, there is a little bit of like art and science behind it. You kind of need to find clothes that suit your hair, skin, body type fit and use clothes that make you feel your best. And, that really goes along the spectrum of masculine and feminine, and actually makes them a little bit irrelevant. It's just whatever makes you feel best, whatever makes you feel most confident, and whatever, suits your identity and personality best. So of course that's not going to be the same every single day. But that's kind of like what I would love to pass on, is just, stop looking at it as a rule-based, kind of thing, and just start having fun. Clothes are not meant to be super serious and super restrictive. It's, I personally love it to express who I am, and I hope that's one thing that our listeners can take away with today.
That is amazing. And always remember to dress for yourself and not for others, or these stereotypes that people tell you, like, oh, you should only dress like this a certain way because you are a man or a woman or non-binary. Whatever you are, just dress for yourself first. Like, as you have said, like, have fun with it, be comfortable with it. So yeah. Oh, that's such a
great. Cool. Now let's go on to the second part of the fashion and activism talk. So diversity and inclusion and anti-Asian hate is the second part we're going to dive into, and it's such an important area and issue that, as we kind of brought up before. But before we dive into it, I really wanted to notice and really bring attention to the difference between diversity and inclusion, because often they are lumped together in the abbreviation, D&I, and I think it is really important to realize the difference between them. So diversity is the practice or quality of including or evolving people from a range of different social and ethnic backgrounds, of different genders, sexual orientations, life experiences, ages, cultural backgrounds, etc. So we really wanted to bring to light that diversity enriches the collective, and by bringing to the table a multitude of opinions, perspectives, and ideas. And inclusion is about making sure that each individual and their respective opinions are not marginalized and are given equal opportunities to be heard and to be given power. So Isabella actually had a recent event, which I'll let her talk to, which is very much on this topic. And I did attend this, but it was in Indonesian. So I really would love actually some of it was a great, recap on the podcast, because it's very much something that she can speak to, and very interesting to this podcast.
Thank you, Kelsey. And yes, again, it's in Indonesians, but I wrote a lot of notes into it to share to you. And so I think when we talk about diversity and inclusion, you were exactly on point about the differentiation between diversity and inclusion, and how we can actually mesh the two together. And as an Asian myself, a Southeast Asian, I have to say that our invisibility is so real, especially in fashion, in many industries and many sectors. I think the term, and as we have seen from the uptick of anti-Asian hate in March 2021, recently up until, in the earlier of the year, we have seen that the term model minority, and that's exactly basically the type of discrimination that I have received even as an Asian woman living in the United States, in Australia, and even working in my field, that we always have this term that Asians are a model minority, and it creates an illusion that we are doing just fine. Whereas in reality is that our representation is still very much low, in whether it be in popular culture, whether it be even in fashion, or in so many different ways. And because of that, people have this preconceived notion that the Asian community is a largely successful community because of this term. Whereas in reality, that's not the case. We struggle in every nook and corner of the industry, from decision-making tables and executive positions to everywhere. And now I think I want to bring to light that what we've seen towards the hate is exactly from this misconception that we have. Last week, is it yes last week, Girl Up, my organization, we teamed up with Rentique, which is a sustainable like a rent the runway app that is created by a leading Indonesian entrepreneur, and also other Southeast Asian sustainable brands and also movements, from Jakarta Feminists to Girl Peace Security to Girlish Company. And these are all Southeast Asian based sort of like gender equality movement and entrepreneurship to create a fashion beyond gender event that looks through K-pop. And also we bring in one of the biggest sort of like fandoms in the world right now, and everyone probably knows their name. It's ARMY, it's BTS ARMY, to talk a lot about, you know, how they see BTS as a pioneer in making sure that Asian representation is represented well in this platform. And we have seen basically BTS as a rising K-pop star, not only in Korea, in Asia, but also now all over the world. But we also see with that is that there is the sense of still racism towards them. And again, in April, they made a statement saying that we are still being called out because of our name, because the way we speak English. And that was also so many things that I think us Asians struggle, is that people think that it's okay for a lot of people to ask us like, oh, you speak good English, you know, for an Asian, like that. Or also, you know, in one way, like, where do you actually from? That was like a lot of the discrimination that I got from like my lifetime, especially when I was an Asian in the West, and a lot of the countries that I lived in previously. And I was invited to speak on behalf of my experience as well on a Girl Up during the Asian American Pacific Islander month in April. And the biggest thing that they asked was that, how do you feel? And my answer to that was, we rarely become the main cast. And if you see, Asians are always the second leading, or we're rarely the main cast, but Asia is the biggest continent in the world. We shouldn't go unnoticed. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we are still seen as being invisible, but we are invincible because of the diversity that we have in Asia itself. Asia is not just one area. Not only East Asia, there's Southeast Asia, and within Southeast Asia there is Vietnam, Indonesia, like myself and Leos. We're so diverse, and that's why when you mentioned in the beginning about inclusion, making sure that each individual and their respectful opinions are heard, that is exactly why we need to talk more about this, because I think that at the end of the day, it's and what the event in last week talked about is basically that we see BTS paving the way, but we also see their fandoms who are Asians and also a lot coming from other country learning more about the Asian culture. And that's the first step. Like, it's beautiful, it's great, it's so diverse. Learn more about it. It's a first step. And the second one is to give platform to Asians, marginalized Asian communities, such as one of my friend who is from the LGBTQ community who talk about queer culture and aesthetics from the Asian perspective, and how sometimes queer culture is more seen as, you know, the villains in Disney movies, but they're not. And there's a lot of, you know, queer, up and coming queer fashion designers that should get the stage. And also we talk about how Asian women entrepreneurs are also leading the way to creating sustainable fashion. And that is exactly how we are planning to use this platform that we have as an Asian, as a marginalized community, as a woman, to actually bring more empowerment, because that the future the future is indeed women, yes, and also the future is a more diverse and a more inclusive one as well. So yeah, I think that's something that I would like to highlight briefly a bit as well.
Wow. That's very powerful message. Thank you for that. And I definitely agree that the number one step is education, and really starting to explore not only with Asian culture in life, but particularly in Asian culture. And I just love that you just said we're not invisible, we're invincible. And I think that that's such a powerful message, slogan, and very, very strong sentence we very much can pass on to listeners who have ever felt marginalized. So I think it's great to also weave into fashion and activism, and how I guess the issues of anti-Asian hate has been countered through fashion. And one point I'd love to make, or really stood out to me, was the Miss Universe Singapore's costume, which created such a statement. It was this kind of like cascading cape almost, which said stop Asian hate. And it was just really, I think it was a beautiful piece of art. And I think it came at such a pertinent time on a global stage, and it really started a lot of conversations. And yeah, I think that was such a, from someone who's outside of the Asian community, really got me researching more and really trying to understand what the conversation was. And lots of designers are also very much speaking to this as well. Did you want to speak about your example?
Yes, so exactly, that is a very great example to basically use direct messaging into the most current uptick in anti-Asian hate. And I think that one thing is, we have seen what Miss Universe in Singapore is doing is also asking the industry in the beauty and fashion industry to show up and do the right thing by not being complicit in all the biases, racisms, and microaggressions that we've been dealt all our lives. And it's important because, at the moment, we have to call out when we know that there is microaggressions going on, and a part of them is realizing it and not being afraid to stand up for it. And that is exactly what we called fashion activism, but just activism as a whole. It's about practicing, like for me, practicing your activism is not just in spaces where you feel comfortable, but where you can make an impact. And one thing is that we have to continue with, it's still a long way to go. That's what I say. So it's not something that we just talk about it because it's trending, it's a hot topic, it's going viral. No, but we need to continuously talk about it in our day-to-day lives. I think one of the biggest examples, such as my favorite designer is actually Prabal Gurung, and he is a Nepalese American, and he has spoken a lot about what it truly means to be quote unquote American, and looking again deeper to identities and race, and how that has become a sometimes a barrier towards inclusivity. And it is something that I think we should continuously talk about in our messagings, and learn from Prabal, how he's like paving the way for diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I think what he keeps on saying, and what Prabal is doing, is from his designs, is to incorporate also a lot of like Nepalese traditional designs into his couture pieces, which are also worn a lot by artists like Camila Mendez and Zendaya was a big proponent of and lover of Prabal's work as well. And I think that is one way where Asian designers can be noticed is, and also because what we design usually has a story behind our culture, where we came from. Like what I'm using right now is I'm wearing a batik print right now, and batik is a famous batik, a design from Indonesia, and it's a famous textile design, and it's part of the UNESCO World Heritage. And that's something that a lot of people don't know yet, because sometimes, again, we're still invisible on this side. But bringing to light, batik is something that's close to me. And when I went to the United States, I always wear batik, and I always sometimes want to share like batik to my friends and give them like little batik pieces, and they will ask like, oh, what is this? This is cute. Like, but yeah, this is where my ethnicity is from. Like, this is where I am. And that's exactly what Asian designers are doing right now. They're actually bringing a lot of their personal background and historical stories into their designs. And that is one way where we are actually creating diversity and inclusion and paving the way for more respect towards different race and gender. So
yeah, absolutely. I think that, authenticity and, being proud of your heritage is so important to all cultures. And I just think it brings a little bit of interest to, the fashion industry and diversity. So I'd also love to talk about the importance of like allyship and how the industry can best support it and kind of limit being complicit to the like wrongdoings that we've been seeing. So one thing that that's definitely not escaped anybody's attention is, the uproar of Black Lives Matter and all these, I guess different issues, but how the response of companies, how it's kind of do or die. It's very much been a consumer driven shift in the industry, and with our like cancel culture, if a company is not like complying in a way that's deemed ethical or deemed right to the masses, people are actually taking actions now, so which is very different to the past. So in Black Lives Matter, countless CEOs stepped down during the protests for a variety of racist allegations, including the CEO of Reddit, CrossFit, Reformation, Refinery 29, to name a few inside and outside of fashion. I think that Gen Z especially can really see through purpose washing. And I'll definitely talk to, greenwashing. And I know in your event, one of your co-speakers was talking about pink washing, in terms of the LGBTQI community. So yeah, I think it's really driven brands to deliver messaging in a really truthful, authentic, two-way communication kind of manner, because this old monologue, just, shouting messages at consumers is very much, a thing of the past, and, opening up a dialogue and very much a two-way conversation of what consumers want to see and what they expect is very much driving our cultural trends, but also the output of fashion companies. In the industry, there's lots of, calling out of people doing it wrong, but I don't actually see that as very productive, although it is calling out and very much highlighting, the wrongdoings of certain companies, and it is very important. I'd love to also highlight the companies that are doing it right. So I personally loved when Valentino made Zendaya the new face of the Maison, because I just think that she embodies, great value. She's a Emmy award-winning actress. She's a singer. She's very much an activist, and very much, on brand with, anti-racism and very much. A strong believer of progressive values. And we'll definitely link the campaign. I just thought it was interesting to to read the Instagram caption of one of the posts, and it just said, "An archetype reclaimed and championed by diverse voices. Zendaya tells a story of Valentino divas, original, unafraid, and with energy to move forward." And I just think that that really encapsulates the energy of youth, the energy of, progression, and the new way that brands can actually move forward in this allyship, and also in a truly authentic way.
That is really great. Exactly. I hear and say louder for the people in the back. I think we shouldn't only talk about activism, how stories are being told, but the importance is moving forward is how to be a good ally. And you have mentioned everything from the examples that you have given, and I think for me I have like 4 formulas for good allyship. The first one is learn and inform yourself. Like always learn, and how to be good allies to learn about these different cultures and also different histories coming from, and to be acquainted with different informations from either your peers or your colleagues. And the second one is to unlearn. There's a lot of the misconceptions, and that's why we still have microaggressions and racial biases, because we are not unlearning a lot of these things that we think was right, and or what we think is okay to say, but it's not actually. The third one is to respect, and to respect that there are differing opinions and differing backgrounds and also values coming from, and to respect that this is probably something again new for us. And the fourth one, I think, and this is something that my friend who was also in the event, who talked about pink washing, and he wanted to highlight this point so much, is to give space for the marginalized Asian communities, the communities that have a voice, the communities that probably their voices are still unheard of. Give them the microphone, give them the space to talk about it, and don't take it away from them, because again, we are still sometimes invisible, but we can be invincible as well. Our stories can change, and above all that is to be consistent in your in your allyship, and also in everything. I think that's like my closing message for everyone, is to be good allies, to learn and inform, to unlearn, to have respect, and to give space, and above all to be consistent. And it's an everyday progress that we are making, and progress is a positive option. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I will be writing down those points, because you very succinctly summed up I think what is very hard to articulate, and it's very hard to I guess unlearn some of these things that we've really ingrained in ourselves. And I think that can be very much applied to women's issues as well. A whole other podcast on that maybe. But one thing I think I did want to bring to light was how brands can move beyond just performative acts, like beyond just posting, a black tile on Instagram saying Black Lives Matter, or, anti-Asian hate, or whatever. Like how can we really show this true commitment to being against these troubling issues. So I thought one, again, going along the line of presenting good examples, Adidas, however you want to pronounce, they invested $20 million in Black communities in America, which included 50 full university scholarships as well. So I think that was one example that a brand went a little bit further than posting. But yeah, I think it's very much evident if these marginalized communities are not part of the decision-making process. If they don't have a seat on the table, if they don't have a part of, creating fashion campaigns or designs or whatever, it's not going to be responded to by those marginalized communities. You have to create a conversation. It has to be, you have to be speaking the same language, basically, not literally, but you have to be, you know, on the same page with these issues, and you have to be, you know, not one particular stereotyped voice monologued at you know, these communities. So I think that that's one way we can look at how brands can really take, you know, look at these issues and really take it to beyond performative acts, or like performative diversity, etc. So I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm saying that's one way that we, I guess, can be, it's not an easy fix, but definitely something to dive into quite deeply.
There is also another good example is the Gucci Changemaker event, and Gucci created the Gucci Equilibrium, and it has actually gone running since I think 2018. They started this initiative, and it's part of the Gucci's commitment toward you know, both sustainability, diversity, and inclusion, is that they give funds to rising young I think designers until age 23, if I'm not mistaken, and to sort of like a seed funding towards their initiative. They're trying to create their own brands, labels, and everything. And part of them is also providing knowledge to these up and coming designers to understand about the industry, to have skills, and also upskilling. And I think creating these skills, and we can talk more about this, especially in the third point about providing the necessary resources in terms of skills and of ways to, you know, create clothes, or again, designing clothes and everything, because again, fashion is a very, very, very expensive industry, and you need a lot of resources to be in this industry, and it's not an easy fix, and it's also not a fast way, again, to have revenues or incomes regarding it. So Gucci is quite the pioneer in creating this very, very interesting Gucci Equilibrium program, and that is one way where they're providing more diversity, equity, inclusion, and also diversity towards, I think they were also bringing more designers who are disabled designers, because they are not, I am a huge ally towards the disabled community. I think they're, again, a great pioneers. They are also bringing in more spaces and safe spaces for disabled young influencers and change makers to also, you know, have a shot in their dreams, whether it be becoming an entrepreneur or fashion designer. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think Tommy Hilfiger actually did a collection for the sustainable community, the disabled community, and actually, it did receive a lot of positive kind of feedback. So I'd love to see more of that in the industry as well. To sustainability and ethics in the fashion and activism space. So I think that Isabella is the perfect person to be talking to about this topic. You know, I'm also very passionate, as you know, listeners of my past episodes know, about sustainable fashion. But Isabella has a very own eco label called VERONIQUE Labels. And it's got a really sustainable and responsible supply chain and materials used, and who best to speak to it than Isabella herself.
Thank you, Kelsey. And actually, the first episode that I've listened from your podcast was a sustainability, luxury sustainability episode, which was amazing. So again,
thank you.
Thank you for the introduction again. I think Veronique is a label I started this year, early on this year in February, with the hope of it being two things, like environmentally friendly and also ethical in its production. And a Veronique label is a brand partner of Tencel, an eco-fiber company, and especially Tencel Indonesia. And the reason why I choose Tencel. Tencel itself is a lyocell biodegradable fiber, which probably we've seen in a lot of brands as well, and sustainable brands using it. But specifically, why I chose to use Tencel is because of the ethical tracing that it has, sort of like the way you can trace the where it comes from, and also the materials, and also the production, which is very key in running a eco-friendly wear. And the reason behind it is because, again, mass consumption is basically the key thing in fashion that we always talk about. Like, people are always consuming, and we don't know what we consume, and sometimes we don't even know what kind of materials that we're using, right? And the reason why I created Veronique that it's different was that every time you purchase a Veronique item, whether it be our jumpsuit, whether it be our kimonos, or whether it be our wrap suit, you will receive an official Tencel sort of like label, and that label will also have a QR code, which then tells you of how well you have where it comes from, where it's traced. So traceability is a huge thing, especially in running a eco-wear, and we have to make sure that our consumers know what they are consuming, but also where it comes from. So this is an example of our best-selling sort of like jumpsuit. It's called the Alpha jumpsuit, and it's made by 100% Tencel and lyocell materials. And with this, with every purchase of this, in the label, you will also receive this tag, which is the Tencel lyocell tag. And in here, you have the QR code.
Wow.
The QR code to sort of like know more about the claims, and also where what is made of, what it's truly made of. And to purchase basically this, when we talk about traceability, how I got to purchase this for every consumer is that with every fibers and with every roll that I bought, the fabric meters that I bought, it has a different sort of like QR code. And then all these QR codes are also already tailored by the Tencel people here in Indonesia, and the fabric manufacturers and confectioners, to make sure that you will be traced, and you can even see where you how to the processes of it. And it's in 7 different languages. So it's in Italian,
incredible. Very inclusive,
and Espanol, and in English. So this is a part of the Tencel lensing, and I'm happy to be a brand partner of it. So yeah.
Fantastic. That is so awesome. And I'm so in awe that you've, done this in the midst of COVID. That's very overachieving. And it's I think I've also, chatted before about the importance of traceability and the importance of transparency, particularly in my tech episode when I talked about how brands are using blockchain to do this. So it's great to hear how a small fashion business is also using this, and how it's absolutely possible to kind of launch, the sustainable and traceable label. Did you want to talk a little bit about your production facilities?
Yes. So it's also, as I've mentioned earlier, it's very important not only to be environmentally friendly in the materials that you choose, but also in the production method. And as we've seen when we talk about sustainable fashion, what, the biggest case and the biggest outroar was what happened in Ramallah in Bangladesh, right? As we've seen, that's the sort of like the outcome of a bad and unethical production methods when it comes to the material, when it comes to the fashion industry. And so that's a very big sort of like aspect when I was creating Veronique, is to find the right confectioner to partner with. And there is a lot of areas, some that are less costly, some that are faster, like that. But I want to also make sure that it is in line with my my views in gender. And so I partner with House of Liberty or House of Freedom at House of Freedom by Liberty Society, which is also another small medium to enterprise ethical brand here in Indonesia, where our seamstress and our tailors and our sewers and the production is actually by refugee women who are settling here in Indonesia. These are marginalized refugee women that are being upskilled and trained by House of Freedom and Liberty Society. And I am working with them, with the marginalized communities, to empower upskilling and use art and fashion as a form of, again, protest, resistance, and also social awareness. In one way also, when you purchase Veronique, when you purchase the clothing item in Veronique, you won't only get a Tencel, but your proceeds also goes into upskilling these refugee women and providing them with resources such as how to sew, how to tailor, and how to do pattern making, because they should continuously be upskilled, and upskilling takes time. So each product is crafted with love by a group of empowered ladies in their tailoring homes. So just know that when you wear items, you're also giving a hope or community of support as an opportunity to rebuild lives of these jobless women. And it's very difficult, especially to be a refugee woman in Indonesia. And for them to receive personal and professional upskilling is one way where we are a proud partner. And also, I think I'm a fan of QR codes at this time. You will also be given a QR code where that QR code will link to a YouTube video. And I will also share the YouTube video to the link to you, Kelsey, of how these women are being empowered in local factories in nearby Jakarta, Banten. So here, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. I think it's super important to kind of understand that sustainability really does incorporate not only environmental and animal rights, but also the social aspect and this, community building and really producing ethically and, with kind of your brand's vision and purpose and mission. And, I think it's so incredible having, experience with garment workers in Cambodia myself. I definitely know that, upskilling these women, these, marginalized people who are kind of stuck in the poverty cycle, the best way to get out is to upskill and to empower them to actually stand on their own 2 feet and actually, be able to earn money and be proud of, what they're producing. So I very much take my hats off to you on this label, and we will definitely be sharing all the links in the show notes below.
And I also have a shout out from one of my friends. Veronique has we're actually on the on the discussion, and also stay tuned that we're creating actually a interesting sort of like collaboration with the disabled community and also with the diversity with a children's book, an upcoming Indonesian children's book, where Veronique will also partner in creating a clothing item from the children's book that is up and coming, in making sure which speaks a lot about cherishing yourself and about championing diversity and inclusivity in your individualness and also through fashion. So yeah.
Wow, isn't that practicing what you preach? How we were talking about, starting young and breaking down these barriers. So you heard it here, folks. First here, folks. Can't wait to share that as well. But coming back to fashion and activism and sustainability, which is very much a core part of Get Vogue and my personal fashion philosophy. I do a lot of like research in greenwashing and actually the thesis that I'm developing at the moment, which is taking up a lot of my time, is kind of in the space. So particularly in relation to digital activism, and particularly Instagram as a vessel for CSR activities. But what I thought was great to see this week is I follow a young UK-based like eco warrior, and her handle is Tomia, and I will definitely link that bit down below. But she had a bit of a win this week. She saw the windows of a H&M store, and it had these huge like posters of young children posed as climate crusaders, eco warriors, and you know what sort of a couple of people brought out was that it had the same kind of coloring and fonts as Extinction Rebellion, and it was very much, it was just pure greenwashing, and you know, if anyone actually doesn't know what greenwashing is, it's kind of like the misleading or you know, misconception of pretending that your company is doing more so in the sustainability space than it actually is. So you know, this influencer really made it apparent that 96% of H&M's green claims ignore the EU Commission's. They're really, a lot of them are unsubstantiated, very misleading. And you know, she kind of plonked herself inside of the window display, and I just really take my hat off to her. The next day they took down all the banners and everything, so she had a little win there. But what I thought was a little bit hilarious, and so did she, was that on one of the posters it said, talking about these young climate crusaders, they can't drive, vote, or tweet, but they can change the planet or even find new ones. And like, what is that messaging? Is they can change the planet, which could be for the worse. They might find new ones. Okay, so we're going to destroy this planet buying H&M, and you know what? But it's just masked in this clever advertising, marketing, you know, flurry of semiotics and pure greenwashing. And I thought that was great that you know, somebody so young was able to recognize that, and it's becoming such a you know, consumers are having such a voice in changing this and really pulling brands up. So yeah, it's kind of great to see that happen in action.
That is exactly why I think we need more of her. We need more pioneers and change maker like her. Is a testament to how we're moving into, you know, having sustainability activists and using fashion in the right way, in the right plethora. And so that is exactly, I think, a great example of how much power our Gen Z can have. And we truly do reap everything that is happening right now on all of us. And especially to do this again in a climate that is filled with pandemic, still with COVID-19 looming around us. And people say that, I always say that a lot of the issues that we talk about has happened even before the pandemic. The pandemic can kill, so can, you know, sustainability, as we've seen in what happened in Ramallah, so can gender inequality and gender-based violence, and of course so can racism and hate and discrimination. And this is exactly why it should always be a continuous conversation. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't just be a one-time thing. Mm-hmm. And I think the example that you mentioned here is exactly great, and how big brands, and I know that you are an expert on it, like how luxury brands can actually also follow into footsteps, and how they can actually make their production more sustainable, and also their consumption, everything. And I'm actually very, very happy to say that I haven't consumed any clothing item for the last 1 year from any fast fashion brand. Wow. And I've completely actually switched right now because we're like, as we said, we're in a pandemic. We're like doing everything on Zoom. We're like on a Zoom Olympics actually all the time, room to room Zoom. And that is the sort of, yes, the future of work that we're heading. Eventually, we are still in there. In my case, Indonesia, we're still like in a lockdown. But because of that, I had to rethink about my consumption a lot, and how personally the easiest way that we can become a more sustainable consumer. And I have been renting like instead of consuming, because I do not need to waste more on, you know, clothes that I probably just wear only once or twice, everything like that. And that is one way. And after creating my own eco-wear brand, I have learned also to reaping the skills of making my own clothes. And that literally saved a ton of, you know, waste, and also unused clothes that I can only wear just one time like that. So I think that what we have seen as a testament to sustainability is that you can do it on your own personal time in your own ways as well. It's actually easier when and it's not always a long shot. Start renting instead of just buying mass consumption. Like I'm not a huge fan of fast fashion, you know, as I was, say, like 3 years ago, before I was quote unquote not woke enough about the issue. And now I haven't even like stepped foot to Zara and or like H&M anymore. So I'm like on you as well on that. And I actually once wrote that in an Instagram post, and people started asking me, so where, Bella, like send me some sustainable brands, please send me some online sustainable brands. And I gave them that all of the sustainable brands, and it was also one of the reason why I wanted to make my own. It's because you have to practice what you preach eventually. Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, I think if there's one thing we can kind of share to our listeners today, which I've kind of reiterated before, you know, I guess some tips to shop sustainably from a consumption point of view, because obviously production side of things, as you would know, is a completely different ball game. You know, I think trying to shop local, support small businesses, shop sustainable materials like Tencel, really try and like extend garment life cycles by upcycling or repurposing. You know, I love a good charity shop. And, you know, on the topic of renting, I feel like I'm an avid bag renter, actually. So I very much, you know, being a lover of luxury things, I, one, couldn't afford all of these bags, but two, think it would, you know, just be too overconsumption of these products. So I personally love renting as well, but to offer a different perspective, there has been a lot of reports that have come out to say that there is you know, kind of an unsustainable side to it in terms of the transport of it and the postage and that sort of thing. So that's definitely another issue that the fashion industry can have a conversation about and start to find more sustainable solutions, because at the end of the day, there's no right and wrong answer. And I really think that, you know, when it comes to sustainable fashion, much as I often draw a parallel to veganism. I'm not a vegan, but I definitely eat a lot of vegan foods, and I really admire and appreciate the you know, intent behind it. And I think that but what I really don't like, and what I do see in you know, I guess vegan culture, is that it's very like, if you're not that way, you're just wrong. And it's very much a spectrum to learn and to make great decisions every day. You don't need to be an eco warrior every, well, you can try to be, but it's very, very hard. I mean, I find myself also being tempted by, you know, cheaper options or less sustainable options, or, you know, because that is how the industry is programmed to make money. So it's very much not only on the, you know, consumers to kind of make this work, but, you know, I think there's definitely steps that we can take to feel proud in becoming more sustainable.
For sure. I think that is exactly what we are on the right track, and the fact that we have this conversation going is indeed a testament to everything that we have said, that it starts with it starts with realizing about this issue. It starts with realizing and knowing that there is a problem. The second is to learn about it more and more. And then the third is to find solutions, which means you sometimes have to unlearn and learn a lot of things, which means you have to go back to the drawing board, to the researching, go back to understanding the life cycle of a garment. And it takes time. And that is why fashion is not supposed to be fast. Everything, it's supposed to take in the time for you to completely understand that it will affect a lot of people's life. It's a domino effect of things. And so I think that is exactly what we kind of like hit the nail on the head right there.
Okay, well, we might move on to some concluding thoughts. So yeah, I think what I want and what we want people to take away from today is that, fashion is a powerful material to express cultural meaning, attitudes, identity, and lots of different things I guess you can believe in, but you should look at it as, in a less restrictive way and a more playful and expressive way, and we definitely can share some tips on how to do that, but just have fun with it.
Completely true. And I think another one is also that diversity and inclusion, it should be a central key in changing and how the fashion industry should be moving towards. And it is still a long process to go, and we still have a lot to do. We still need to put in the work and the effort into it. And as I have mentioned in our section, and we'll reiterate it again in our concluding talk here, is that to be a good ally, whether it be you're in the whether you're a consumer, whether you're a designer, whether you are in the industry, pioneering to the industry, or anywhere you are, I think being these formulas of being a good ally is to firstly learn and unlearn. The second one is to unlearn a lot of things. The third one is to practice respect and empathy. And the fourth one is to allocate the right kind of space to the marginalized voices that should be heard of. And because again, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, we should always come from a place of empathy, and in the long run as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So, whether it be, your gender, expression, diversity and inclusion, or sustainability, we really want you to see that fashion has the power to be an activist, a personal activist, in any way, shape or form that you choose. But of course, we'd love to hear your opinions on this topic. So feel free to reach out to both of us on Instagram. My handle is at Kelsey_7 or at get.vogue. And Isabella's is Isabella Veronica with 2 A's at the end, VERONIQUE LABELS, and Girl Up Indonesia. And we'll link all of that on the show notes. We also appreciate your ratings and your reviews on Spotify, YouTube, IGTV, wherever you're listening to this. But I really would love to take the time to thank Isabella for her time today, for her knowledge, her unique perspective, and very much sharing what I think we all need to hear in these times. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for providing this platform again. I'm so happy to connect with you and, to have this conversation even more with you. And, here's to friendship as well. And thank you so much. And I hope that everyone had a great, insightful new knowledge. And I can't wait also to hear what other people have to say as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Get Vogued. And that's the end of the latest episode of Conversations with Kelsey at Get Vogued podcast. As always, you can reach out to me at getvogued.com or on Instagram at Kelsey_7 or at get.vogued. Did you know we also have a YouTube and Facebook page with the handle Get Vogued by Kelsey7? As always, I'd also love to hear your thoughts on this or any episode, so feel free to reach out to me. Until next episode, stay sparkly.